The Guardian discuss Manchester United and their, well, let's be clear, potential search for a new coach, because Erik ten Hag is still in post. They've still got an FA Cup final coming up this Saturday against Manchester City. But, as Jamie Jackson writes, Thomas Tuchel has emerged as the front runner to replace ten Hag as Manchester United's manager should the club decide on a change. Charlie, is this a good fit? Given what Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe are trying to build and everyone else they've put in place in terms of the role of manager or head coach or whatever they decide to term it, how good a fit is Thomas Tuchel for this new era of Manchester United, should it come to it?
Potentially, but first of all, Manchester United and Ineos, they've got to really decide exactly what they want. And first of all, they need to decide, 100% whether Erik ten Hag is not their man. I don't think he is, even though they've got the cup final on Saturday. Even if Manchester United, do win it, however unlikely, they've still got a chance, haven't they? I think they're going to have a new manager at Old Trafford. And in many respects, I think Tuchel would be a good fit. He certainly wouldn't be overawed. He's managed Bayern, obviously, and Chelsea and PSG, maybe Kieran McKenna, maybe Pochettino as well. It looks like they've got a four-man list. So I think there's quite a lot of talking to do at Old Trafford and amongst the board there, some big decisions to make. But certainly Thomas Tuchel, I don't think he enjoyed the end of his spell in Germany, even though potentially at one stage he was going to go back to Bayern, and that's because they didn't have a manager. But I think he's missed England. He really enjoyed managing in England. He loved the Premier League. He loved the atmosphere. And I actually think, he quite enjoyed some of the sparring with the journalists in his press conferences as well. So he'd definitely be a welcome addition back in England.
You mentioned that four-man shortlist, Charlie. Jason, assess it for us if you wouldn't mind. Mauricio Pochettino, who's obviously available after the shock departure from Chelsea. This is in the Times and just the side column there. Tuchel, as we've mentioned, Kieran McKenna, who's achieved the back-to-back promotions with Ipswich, and Thomas Frank, who's just effectively avoided relegation with Brentford. So how do you see it?
Well, there's two different types of manager on that list. They've obviously got the more experienced manager in Pochettino and Tuchel, who've managed the big clubs before, have been in charge and know the situation. Obviously, then you've got Thomas Frank and Kieran McKenna, where you're bringing in much more potential, who might fit in actually a little bit more with the structure in which they're organising it at Manchester United. Those two names have been mentioned to me. Pochettino certainly would love the job and has been talked about in the past, and suddenly his availability makes him a candidate. I think Tuchel is a bit more of an outsider, if I'm totally honest. I think Manchester United have known for some time that he was leaving Bayern Munich. He definitely wants the Manchester United job, but I'm not 100% sold that Manchester United are have him high on their list at the moment. I think there are other candidates that they're still thinking about. But what I think is really interesting is that the Chelsea situation has suddenly concentrated minds at Manchester United. And if you look at who Chelsea are looking at, then Kieran McKenna and Thomas Frank both feature heavily in their wish list. And Manchester United are suddenly presented with a situation where they've got a manager in place who they may well, and I agree with Charlie, I don't think he will stay, who may well leave after the FA Cup final. Chelsea are talking now and doing so tomorrow about who their new manager is going to be, and are hoping to make an appointment next week. So suddenly Manchester United have got to get a move on. So they're in this uncomfortable situation where maybe they have to start looking at managers as well. Right now, where they've still got a manager in place, because they might lose out to somebody to Chelsea. So I think of those candidates, I would have thought McKenna and Frank and Pochettino, and then probably Tuchel in that order.
Let's talk about Kieran McKenna, Charlie, because an incredible story. We know with Ipswich and what he's done there, he's worked wonders. But he's got this connection with United, with his previous coaching spells there with under-18s and obviously in the coaching staff of Mourinho and Solskjaer and Ranić. Is it too big a step, or do you believe this romantic return?
I don't think it's too big a step. I think the Premier League clubs are often reticent in bringing in young coaches, certainly from the Championship. It's rare. a similar situation a few years ago is, Antonio Conte took Siena up into Serie A and he got the Juventus job. He had, previously managed at Atalanta, but, Juventus, arguably the biggest club in Italy, they took the plunge and they were rewarded. And, similarly, McKenna knows Manchester United, as you said, he's coached there before. I feel a bit sorry for Ipswich because they took that gamble 2 years ago, or a relative gamble, and they've been rewarded. He's taken them up out of League One, where they've been for 4 years, and an unbelievably good season, having got them into the Premier League. So some sympathy there for Ipswich. They've offered him a big new contract. I think they were aware of the contracts that were about to come in definitely from Brighton, and maybe from Manchester United and Chelsea as well. So I think Kieran McKenna, he's in a very fortunate situation. I think he will be leaving Ipswich, and I think the case is where he's going to go. But it'd be very interesting at Man United. But I think Brighton will still be hopeful that they can get him.
OK, so let's nail this down then. I want quick fire from you. Who are going to be the managers of Manchester United, Chelsea and Brighton next season? Jason, you first.
Oh, my goodness me. Chelsea, I think Maresca. Brighton, I think McKenna. I still think it's possible that McKenna will go to Brighton. Manchester United, oh, dear me. I'm not so sure. Possibly even Thomas Frank.
Oh, interesting. OK, Charlie, go. You've had a bit more time to prepare, admittedly. You've got the advantage here.
I agree with Jason. I don't think Thomas Frank's got enough credit, and I think he deserves a big job, and I think he could get Manchester United, and McKenna at Brighton and Maresca at Chelsea also.
See, do you know what you could have done there, Jason? You could have gone Thomas Frank. You know what? I think you really did me on the Thomas there. Fantastic. I put you on the spot there. I really appreciate you standing up to that. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to take a quick break, other side of which we'll look at more of the back pages, including this in the Telegraph. Wayne Rooney set for the Plymouth job. Stay with us. We're back in a couple of minutes. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to the Telegraph's chief football correspondent, Jason Burt, and the Sun football editor, Charlie Wyatt. OK, let's go to your paper, Jason, the Daily Telegraph, and the headline there, Rooney set for Plymouth job. It's an exclusive from John Percy, former England captain, eyes shock return to management. Championship side finished 1 point above relegation. Yeah, this is a shock, isn't it? I mean, we wouldn't have put these two parties together, would we normally? Tell us about it.
No, it's a great story from John Percy, my colleague. I had no idea he was filing it until I read it earlier on, and it was one of those where your jaw did drop a little bit. And then actually you read the story itself, and it does make a little bit more sense. Neil Dewsnip, obviously, has been caretaker at Plymouth, knows Wayne Rooney from way back at Everton when he was academy director, actually, and Rooney was coming through there. So he's always had a connection with Wayne Rooney, and I think he's decided that he wants to give Wayne Rooney another chance in management. I wasn't sure what was going to happen to Wayne after Birmingham City and obviously how badly it went there. But he's got himself another opportunity. And actually, I mean, whether or not he is going to be cut out to be a great manager, what you cannot accuse him is he's at least trying. You know, he's very much wants to be a manager. He wants to give it a go. He's prepared to go to the clubs that want him. And Plymouth Argyle look like it's going to be them in the Championship again. And as I say, it's a great story from John Percy on a very busy day anyway.
Charlie, what kind of impact could Wayne Rooney make there? It's a story that you guys are running in your paper, that the Sun as well, roos off to Devon, it says there. So what kind of approach could he have and what kind of impact could he make?
Well, he needs to obviously have a much bigger impact than they did at Birmingham when he went in there and he sort of tried to, or I think he was under pressure to change the style of play, and his argument was he didn't have the players, so that obviously ended pretty badly, or very badly at Birmingham, and the season that ended terribly for them. And the irony is that Plymouth finished 1 point ahead of Birmingham, and they scraped to safety. So Ian Foster left just before the end of the season. So it's a great opportunity for Wayne. I still believe all managers rather, deserve another chance. It doesn't make them a bad manager with one sacking. Some benefit from that. Equally, this could be the last chance for for Rooney. So it could be a terrific opportunity. And as Jason said, a great story by John Person.
Let's stay with you, Charlie, and with your paper, The Sun. Right at the top, Rash is fuelled up. Eric Ten Hag has told Marcus Rashford to use his England snub as fuel to save his Manchester United career. This is, I mean, it's such a fascinating journey with Marcus Rashford. It has been the roller coaster, hasn't it? Charlie, how do you feel things are now set for him? Because he's got the summer off. He won't be with England in Germany, barring some sort of very extraordinary change of circumstance. And now, knuckle down and focus on life at Old Trafford.
Well, that's exactly what he's got to do. And, Eric Ten Hag was asked about it today, pre-FA Cup final press conference. Marcus Rashford obviously not included in Gareth Southgate's 33-man squad, due to his terrible form. 8 goals this year. He actually played all right for England in the autumn, but was warned in March that his place was under threat, and he hadn't scored since. And he's lost his place because basically there were several other players playing much better than him in his position, in the England squad. Ten Hag's hoping that Rashford can still, fire United against Manchester City on Saturday and still, resurrect his career. There are a few teams still wanting Rashford, although I'm not sure, looking at his last few weeks and his overall contribution to games and his body language, it's not been great. He does go through periods like this and then he comes through the other side. Consistency is obviously an issue for him, always has been. In there is obviously a terrific player. And Ten Hag is hoping that that terrific player will be unleashed at Wembley. Because if Manchester United are going to win the Cup final and get into Europe, they really do need Marcus Rashford to produce, one of his really good performances.
OK, sticking with United, but back to you, Jason, and back with your paper, The Telegraph, on Diogo Dalot and the statement of, well, players don't deserve backing we get from our fans. Can you unpack that one for us?
Well, it's an interesting comment for a player to make, and I commend his honesty, really, because he's probably right. I mean, one of the things that's been fascinating about Manchester United and going to Old Trafford in particular, but also with their away games, is the unstinting backing that the players and Eric Ten Hag have continued to receive. Now, often with big clubs in particular, this situation can turn quite quickly. The fans can turn. There's obviously Manchester United fans get accused of a sense of entitlement, having been so successful for so long. But it's been a difficult last 10 years for them. But actually, those supporters, need commending because they've continued to back the team. They've continued to back Eric Ten Hag. There's no chance for Eric Ten Hag to go. And often, again, you get the sacked in the morning chants that come from home supporters when managers are struggling, and that's just not happened at Old Trafford, and that's not happened with the United fans. And I commend him really for being so honest and being so sort of correct as well, because I think he's right. The United players haven't performed; they've underperformed dreadfully, really, this season. It's been absolutely abysmal at times, but they've actually continued to have the supporters behind them, and that's to the credit of those fans.
Not too far away from United, Burnley, and this story in the Express, talking about Craig Bellamy, looking like he might succeed Vincent Kompany. He's currently assistant to him. He's the number 2 for Vincent Kompany if he's heading over to Bayern Munich. Whilst Bayern make what a lot of people seem to be a kind of a bold move for a manager who's just got relegated, Charlie, does it make sense for Burnley to sort of stick with what they know with Craig Bellamy coming in there? We've got roughly about a minute left.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they obviously weren't expecting Vincent Kompany to be poached by Bayern Munich. I mean, the season's only ended, a few days ago. I can't believe the last 48 hours. It's been extraordinary, isn't it, with some of the stories we're seeing sort of, whizzing around the whole of England. Vincent Kompany to Bayern, I mean, just wow. I think he'd want Bellamy to go with him, but it would be good for Burnley to try and keep him. But I still can't. I still can't get my head around Bayern getting Kompany. Briefly, Jason, can you see it? Kompany to Bayern?
Oh yes, I think that deal will happen. I think the conversation is obviously being a bit of a sticking point at the moment, but I think Vincent Kompany's made it very, very clear he wants to go, and it's going to be very hard for Burnley to keep him. And I think, from continuity's sake, Burnley want to keep Craig Bellamy and trying to get back into the Premier League.
Fantastic. Gents, we've rattled through so many stories, especially in part 2 of the show. Really appreciate your comments, your insights, and we'll see you again very, very soon indeed. If you've missed any of the show, then there's another chance to see Back Pages tonight, 1:30. Of course, it's also available on the podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Tomorrow night, Friday night, Riath Al Samurai and Jack Rosser are our guests. And on the way next, more on this managerial merry-go-round. What happens to Kieran McKenna?